please. All right. Good evening, everyone. It's 6:32 p.m. Welcome to Manhattan Community Board 3's full board meeting for the month of June on Monday, June 27th, 2022. Little change up because we didn't think the executive order was going to get extended initially. So that's why I bumped it up to Monday this week. So thank you for everyone for coming on and helping out. All right, so we're going to start with public session right now. I will put the 2-minute clock up and I will share my screen. I asked the Zoom facilitators to help me out to find somebody if they promote them. Give me 1 second. All right, there we go. The first speaker I have tonight is Carol Caustic. I will give you 2 minutes. Go right ahead.
Hi there. I'd like to turn my my camera on if I'm allowed to do that. Without counting against my screen time? But all right. Well, hello. My name is Carol Caustic. I'm speaking about the Madison Realty Capital NYCHA Campus 2 land use item. I'm a resident of the 14 BC Co-op on 14th Street between Avenue B and C, where I moved in 1981. Our co-op does not oppose development at 644 East 14th Street. We welcome construction of housing there and know that Campus 2 residents need improvements. At the June Land Use Committee, we presented our concerns about height, bulk, loss of air and light, the loss of our ability to have solar due to the new shadows on our roof, construction risks to our 130-year-old tenement buildings, and the failure to apply planning principles to reflect the neighborhood character. We noted that Campus 2 residents will also be negatively affected by the new shadows, as will the garden where they grow food. I can't detail those concerns in my 2 minutes, but I want to highlight a procedural failure that I think bodes poorly for future development in our neighborhood. The city's environmental quality review studied what it defined as, quote, the directly affected area, unquote, of Campos Plaza and the 644 lot only. And that's all it considered. Our row of old lot tenements surrounded on 3 sides by Campos and 644 was not included. Not surprisingly, the environmental review found no impacts on the study area while ignoring the severe impacts on us, the direct neighbors. By wrongly excluding us from their study, they wrote themselves a free pass on addressing the problems their plan creates. Community Board 3 should not have accepted this manipulation of the environmental review process and should not have voted to approve a project that is founded on a dishonest analysis. I ask you, if this was your block and your home, wouldn't you want a full and fair analysis of the environmental impacts before the project went forward? At this point, your vote tonight is only symbolic, but I ask you to vote against the resolution and the shoddy process that got us here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next person I have on my list is Victoria Murphy. Is Victoria on?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead. Thank you.
Terrific. Yeah, my name is Victoria Murphy. I'm speaking to the same resolution that Carol just spoke to. I'm a resident of the 6 building 120 unit 14 BC Co-op directly to the west of the proposed building. And I moved here in 1980. As she said, our co-op supports appropriate development on this site, one that respects all the neighbors as well as the neighborhood. We welcome construction of housing there and especially affordable housing. And we take seriously the need for repairs and improvements at Campus 2. This project has been under consideration for over 2 years. No one reached out to us during that time to inform us or learn our perspective on it. The proposed building's developer, with its full-time staff, lawyers, architects, engineers, and lobbying firm, waited until April of this year to tell us about it. NYCHA never contacted us. The community board never reached out to us, or as far as we can tell, suggested that the developer and NYCHA should contact us. Further, at the May and June Land Use Committee meetings, the developer and NYCHA were given the floor to hold forth at length. We were relegated to 2-minute public comments. We weren't even allowed to speak in sequence to present a coherent review of the issues that the development raises for us. We understand that the board reached a different conclusion about the development than we did, but you did so while excluding us from meaningful participation and not considering how the resolution could be modified to reduce negative impacts on us while still providing funds for NYCHA. The mandate of the community board is to consider the interest of the whole community, engage all stakeholders in the review process. Why didn't you do that? Why did you so marginalize us? How is this not a dereliction of duty on your part? If this was your block, if this was your home, is this how you would like to be treated? Thank you.
Thank you. Next person on the public speaker list is Laura Sewell. Laura, you on?
I'm here, thanks.
Okay.
So just for context for the members not on the committee, this item has already been referred to the City Planning Commission. We really appreciate the CB3 Land Use Committee's robust attention to the many outstanding questions when they were asked for a reso right up against the referral deadline with very little to go on, frankly. And the item returned in June, and the only opportunity to comment is now. So we have what we have. But I have to agree with the residents who spoke earlier that the environmental impact study prepared by HPD defined the affected area as the Campos site plus the new development site, and how it could completely ignore a handful of old law tenement buildings that are surrounded by the study area on 3 sides is unfathomable. Again, there is no question about the desperate need for maintenance funds for NYCHA housing, but to ignore the hundreds of property owners and tenants of these buildings who were not included in the developer's outreach until this spring, long after the deal with NYCHA, which has been in negotiation since March 2020, had been inked, is again unfathomable. It really, this group of people deserves our community's support, and it really needs to improve from here on. So I appreciate the opportunity to highlight this in a public forum, even though I'm not expecting any direct action to be taken by the full board this evening. I hope that our electeds who are listening and others can give these people the support they deserve. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is Noah Martz on? Noah Martz? Noah Martz? Is that person in the
I don't see,
attendee list?
I don't see him. I'm looking now.
All right, I'll come back to that person. Next person I have on my list is William V. Mohica.
I don't see him either.
William Mohica. None of the attendees? No? Okay, I'll come back to that person again.
I don't know who the hell they all this stuff on here. Yeah, I saw it.
Can everyone please put themselves on mute if possible? Thank you. The next person I have is Ernest Hill. Is Ernest Hill on? No. All right, I'll do another run through anybody else who's missing. Richard Taylor.
Did you
No.
have Troy Mack on?
Yeah, I'm coming up to him.
Okay, sorry.
Going to the order I was received. Richard Taylor? No? Okay, I'll come back. Now I'm at Troy Mack. Troy Mack?
Good evening, and thank you for the board's time. I'm here as a part of the Mission Continues, which is a national nonprofit that connects veterans and military families with volunteer opportunities to uplift underserved communities. And I'm here because, as part of the Mission Continues, we're very much interested for our 9/11 annual community service project to bring our resources to some of the neighborhoods that this community board serves and represents. This is a personal passion of my own. During my own recovery from deployment after the Iraq War, neighborhoods and neighbors throughout the area of Community Board 3 cared for me. So now that I have the opportunity to bring some resources back, we're really looking to be able to expand our services and our volunteer opportunities, particularly in Alphabet City and the Lower East Side. And for this 9/11 project, we're wanting to build something akin to little free library planters. And if you're in front of your computers at this time, you can Google what those look like. They're small boxes that allow neighborhoods to leave a book and take a book, and thus promote literacy and lifelong learning throughout communities. We'd like to build several dozen of these and provide them to neighborhoods throughout the Alphabet City area, the Lower East Side, and any other places within CB3 that this board thinks would be helpful to care for children and families that you serve. So moving forward with this project, I wanted to first meet and talk with members of the board and be able to identify how we could partner together, identify areas where we could have most impact to meet most emergent need, and find out if there are any kind of planning or bureaucratic concerns that should be addressed in preparation for deploying this project come September. I very much look forward to any communications and conversations we might have, and thank the board for its time. And I'll put my email in the chat, and the community board also has it on file. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. Okay, last person I have is Laura Thomas, and then I'll call out the people that did not answer the first time. Laura Thomas, is Laura Thomas on?
No.
Okay. I'm gonna do one more run through of people I called on but did not answer. Noah Martz. Still a no?
No.
Okay. Richard Taylor.
No.
Still a no? Ernest Hill.
No.
Okay. William Mohica.
No.
Susan, I see somebody with a raised hand. Is that somebody who we called on or no?
That's Roy Zarno.
Okay, that's all right. Not on the list. So William Mohica, no? All right. Last person again, Laura Thomas. Is there a no?
No.
Okay. All right, that's it. This person raised their hand again. Is this a separate name that was on before or no?
I don't know. I just,
Maybe they can type in the chat.
Yeah,
Are you one of the people that you're under a different name?
No, this is Roy Zorno. I don't mean to violate the protocol here. I thought I had registered to speak, but if I didn't, then that's fine.
No, I don't have you on our list. Sorry.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you. Right. All right, then that's it for public session tonight, everyone. We'll move on now to the elected official reports. And I ask the elected officials to keep all their information germane to the district as well as their public official reps. Is there any, I'm sorry, let me check the panelists, or any of the actual elected officials on right now that I can call on ahead of time? Or is it all,
I don't believe so.
is it all reps? It looks like it's all reps so far. Okay, looks like it's all reps so far. All right, so we're going to start the mayor's office, Mayor Adams' office. Is Mayor Adams' office on tonight? No. Public advocate Jamani Williams on? Or his office, or anybody representing from his office? No. Controller's office, Controller Landry's office? Borough President Mark Levine's office, or Mark Levine, sometimes he's on. Eric, I thought I saw you.
Hello, everybody.
Okay, go ahead, Eric. Thank you.
Great. So first off, wanted to say hello to everyone. Hope everyone has had a great Pride Month, belated Juneteenth, belated Father's Day as well. Paul, I know you mentioned this earlier. The governor did extend the emergency order through July 14th. We will, of course, keep our eye on any possible extension that may happen from there. And just like always, you'll be among the first to know. One thing that I wanted to make sure to highlight ahead of tomorrow. So the borough president teamed up with Councilmember Rita Joseph in Brooklyn to introduce legislation for public bathrooms in New York City. And there will be a public hearing tomorrow on this item. Ahead of the hearing, which is at 2 p.m. tomorrow, we're actually having a rally on the steps of City Hall. Everyone is encouraged to join us, to attend, and help us get the word out in support of this very important bill that we're happy to be co-sponsors on. Just one last thing, because I know you probably have a number of speakers and agenda items. Health updates. Of course, we are now seeing COVID vaccination for our youngest Manhattanites. So the city has opened up vaccine hubs for children between 6 months up to 5 years. If you need to sign up for an appointment, you can go to the New York City Department of Health website or go to vaxfornyc.nyc.gov. And of course, as we're seeing cases rising with monkeypox, the borough president on his YouTube has a video where he did a presentation with Dr. Jay Varma, Dr. Wafa El Sadir, and others regarding monkeypox. And monkeypox vaccinations are available. They're currently available at the Chelsea Clinic at 303 9th Avenue. The Department of Health has opened this up to access and is pushing specifically for gay, bisexual, and other men who have sex with men, cis or transgender, ages 18 and older. There's a very limited number of doses. The borough president is calling on the state to get more doses from the CDC, but I just wanted to make sure that everyone had that information. And with that, I'll yield my time. Thank you.
Eric, thank you. So a quick question, Eric. I know we've talked about it briefly. I know we had Borough Board earlier this month, relatively earlier. In terms of the open meeting law and whatnot and spaces and locations, I know there was a letter that was sent about question about locations and spaces and ventilation and all that stuff. So just want to know, have other boards amended any of their open meeting law resolutions recently? Because I've been hearing different rumors that they had done so. Is that true?
Yeah, so I can follow up on that just because I'm not sure and I don't want to give you the wrong answer. I do know that with the extension, boards can require masking and 3-foot distancing at in-person meetings, but specifically to locations, I don't have that. But I will follow up with you on that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Just a reminder to all board members, questions should remain germane to the district that we are in. Susan. you have your hand up?
Yeah, it's very germane. Eric, could you help us find out if either the governor or the mayor plans to extend the executive order again? I had heard someone in your office has contacts with the state. I think Chris has contact with the state. If we could find out before the day before, it'd be very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I mentioned before, we're trying to stay on top of it. Where as soon as we do hear anything, we'll let you know. I think right now we're waiting to see if there's anything on the city extension as well, which I believe is set to expire. So as soon as we know anything, we will let you know, Susan.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay. I don't see any other hands up, Eric. Thank you. And see you soon.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay. I understand State Senator Kavanaugh is on.
I am. Hi.
Yeah, go right ahead, State Senator. You go
Great,
ahead.
thanks. I'll try to be brief. I have a few things. I know you have a busy agenda, but it's good to see you all. So since your last meeting, we have finished up the regular legislative session, but as you may have heard, the legislative action is set to continue later this week. The governor's called us into special session, particularly to deal with the federal Supreme Court's decision on guns. So we're working, that's, as some of you may know, that's one of my big policy areas I work a lot on, and we are working on a package of legislation that is intended to create a permit system that is compliant with this ruling. The ruling basically says that you can't be nearly as restrictive as with respect to permits to carry guns as New York is. And currently in New York City wide, there are about 2,500 permits that to carry a gun other than law enforcement, former law enforcement. But it does appear that we are committed to create standards that you have to meet before you can be issued a permit. So we're looking at that and also other ways to tighten up our gun laws. This has been an ongoing process. We already passed a package of 10 bills in June that we've been working on during the session, and became more urgent because of the horrible incident in Buffalo, and also Uvalde, and routine gun violence that we see in a lot of our communities. So New York still has one of the lowest rates of gun-related death in America because of our strong laws, and we're committed to continue to do everything we can. And I do expect we'll have a quick and robust response. And again, I'm hoping that we will pass those in the course of a special session on Thursday. It feels like a lot, things are moving so rapidly. Obviously, we also passed a very robust package of bills that were in anticipation of the court's ruling on Roe v. Wade, overturning that decision, and Casey and other precedents that are intended to obviously to preserve people's reproductive and health, reproductive rights and reproductive health services here in New York, and also to ensure that our laws are not being put at the disposal of other states that have proposed to use the courts and the laws to go after people who are traveling to states like New York, where abortion rights are still safe. There may be more we need to do, and obviously this is a very difficult time, and these are difficult decisions to respond to, but we're doing everything possible at the state level to address them. And just a few other quick updates. We did at the end of session pass a bill I had proposed that will facilitate the conversion of hotels into permanent housing. It'll both allow hotels that are zoned for near a place where housing is permitted, but not in a place where housing is permitted. It'll allow those to be converted anyway, and also allow conversions without a new CVO. City estimates that will allow hotel conversions to happen quicker and be perhaps as much as 30% cheaper. And the zoning change, which probably doesn't affect CB3 very much, but will allow a lot of hotels that are currently in N1 zones that are underutilized and are expected to be so for a while because of changing patterns in COVID to be converted quickly to permanent housing. We obviously have a lot to work to do in permanent, securing affordable housing for the state, but this is a significant step, and building on a lot of the work we did during the budget process as well. I know you have a busy agenda. I think I'll stop there. I'm happy to take questions on those matters or anything else.
Thank you, Mr. Senator. Just a quick question. I know we had a brief conversation about open meeting laws. Do you foresee any potential changes down the line to it and adjusting to it? Because I know it's got this hybrid thing that we all have to do resos for. So just wondering if you foresee any changes coming down.
Yeah, I would like to see, I mean, I would like to see the governor use the executive powers to clarify and and perhaps alter that. I recognize particularly the quorum requirement for voluntary groups like community boards is challenging. I think it's more appropriate in like the MTA board or other boards that are doing billions of dollars worth of business on all of our behalf. It's hard. We are having this session on Thursday. It is hard to get even significant matters onto the agenda for when you're in for a special session, because obviously there's a great many things that a lot of us would like to do. But I will and have discussed this with the executive, and I'll raise it again with the governor's office. And yeah, I'll talk with my colleagues about whether there's any appetite to try to address it. But again, getting a agreement between the two houses of the legislature and get something passed on Thursday or Friday, I think would be challenging.
Thank you. All right. Any other questions or any questions for Senator Kavanaugh? All right.
Okay. I'll just end by saying I'm not on the ballot tomorrow, but there is an election. Don't forget to vote. And thank you all for the opportunity to speak with you tonight.
Sure. Thank you, Brian. All right. I believe Assemblymember Epstein is on. He's joining us.
Hey, Pierre, I'm here, Paul. How's everyone doing tonight?
Doing great. Go ahead.
Good. Yeah, I just want to, I think, Brian, obviously we have a special session this Thursday. Obviously the Supreme Court did some really messed up things last week. We expect some more messed up crap coming from the Supreme Court this week. Sorry, just my perspective on the world. Doesn't have to, anyone else has to agree. And so we're going to go in and try to narrow the rules around guns. Obviously, it's a huge issue that people can carry in the streets of New York, in our schools, on our subway, in our libraries, based on what the Supreme Court ruled last week. So we're going to have to try to do something about that. Other issues, around Roe and requirements of funding religious institutions. Those are lots of things going to impact us long term. But at least we can do something around the gun issue, and I expect that we will have a decent legislative session this Thursday to manage that. There are going to be other things we're going to manage. We need to go back to the session. I have to say that at the end of session, we had a pretty productive end of the year. Passed a lot of good comprehensive bills. A lot of things that I care deeply about, we were able to pass, and things that I care deeply about, we weren't able to. So there's a lot more work off session to get bills ready to deal with the climate issues. The crypto mining bill, which we passed, the governor's now threatened to veto. Our accessory dwelling units, our other housing issues I know Brian's been working on, and I've been working on. So there's real comprehensive issues that we are just going to have to continue to work on off session. So the things I'm proudest about at the end of the budget, at the end of session, was my immigrant bond bill. People may know that people who get detained by ICE and sometimes are out of bond, there's no rules. It's basically the Wild West in New York. So bail bonds people could say, even though your bond is $10,000, they can charge you $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to shackle you. And we were able to pass legislation to create rules and regulations and make sure that they couldn't get more than 10% of the value of the bond. It's horrific stories of people who've been totally abused by the system and immigration bail bonds people. It was a really great win at the end of session, but there's I think on the housing front, we have a lot to be thinking about. The governor talked about renewing 421A, and so there's things that we will collectively work on. But I'm happy to answer a question or two. I really think, what you all do is really critical. People know I served 14 years on CB3 in various capacities, and it's really important to be active in our community board because you are really on the front lines of our neighborhood. And we have so many issues going on here, obviously between the trash and the street homelessness and making sure that we have a healthy, safe city. And so those are things that we in Albany can try to work and partner with everyone here to ensure what we all need in a community, we can get done legislatively for all of us. So I see Arnett has her hand up, but she's just calling to say hi, maybe to thank Josh for graduating. I don't know. What is it, Arnett?
Go ahead, Arnett.
That was one of the things, but I did have another question. I meant to ask you or Brian. It just came to me. But congratulations, Joshua. I'm so excited about him. But anyway,
you're
one
close.
of the
You got
Supreme
another
Court's
year.
Decisions about I know, right behind him. That's what makes it so scary and wonderful all together. Well, the Supreme Court made, I think, the decision with Vega. Can't remember the actual title of the case, but where the Miranda Rights seems to be like not as important anymore. And I just thought about it as you're discussing bonds, bailsmen, and gun laws. Is the state legislation thinking about something that would assist in that, especially as we have an attack on our on our bail reform and having more accountabilities for police officers? Or is that something that the state is looking at as far as legislation of what we can do to protect the rights of our...
So Arnett, luckily in New York, we have stronger protections already under state law for people who are being detained in their state-related Miranda rights. I mean, so basically what they're saying is the floor is what the Constitution requires under the federal Constitution is less, unfortunately, than what we thought it was before last week. But that doesn't mean New York can't provide additional protections for people who are being detained and interrogated. And then we've done that time after time. The rights of youth not to be interrogated without parents present. People can't waive those Miranda rights. So while the Supreme Court did I think, a disservice to our criminal justice system by reducing those Miranda rights, I think New York has always and will continue to provide additional protections for people who are being detained. So I think that we're just in a different place. It doesn't mean there's 20 other states where those rights will, people will have less rights. Just like with Roe, New York already has more rights.
Okay, thank you. Some of the members, just follow up, same thing. I asked Senator Kavanaugh about open meetings laws, and I know I know you have special session coming up. I really hope you guys can go to bat on making some changes because I think it's kind of rough for community boards with and how to operate with this new open meeting law in the hybrid format, as well as the quorum requirements. I think it's kind of it's very rough on our end.
Yeah, and Paul, I've raised this numerous times. This is specifically, I kept talking about this. We had a hearing in the fall about it. I'm just not so hopeful, honestly. We tried to talk to the governor about it, and we kept pushing this issue of especially with a community board, when you're going from place to place, you don't have a home. It's very different if you're a city council or a local legislative body where you're in the same location and you can have the equipment and all the structures in place. It's not the same for a community board, and especially if you're going to go to school to a neighborhood center. I will continue to raise this. It is next to impossible to believe that we're going to deal with this on Thursday, but I think we'll be conferencing and we can continue to talk about it. I encourage people, I've been talking about it. I'll continue to talk about it. I'll have my colleague continue to talk about it. We're just going to need a lot more pressure on us. So more resolutions from community boards across the city to us, the Assembly, the Senate, the governor, I think the more pressure you put on us makes it a lot easier. We can more pressure on leadership and on the governor. So I'm not saying that's a great answer, Paul, but it's, I think, the reality of where we are. I don't know, I see Tracy's still here. I think you probably agree, right? It's that's kind of where we're at this point. So.
Okay. No, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure I got that on the record.
Yeah.
All right.
And just what Brian said, tomorrow is primary day. I encourage everyone to go out and vote. I am also not on the ballot tomorrow. So, but I encourage everyone to be out there and vote because it's really our civic duty. There's a lot of important elections on June 28th tomorrow, as well as August 23rd. So, in this time where voting has had a lot of impact on us, I would suggest people just be really active. And you're already the exception because you're already active because you decided to take the time to join the community board and to be active in your community. But I hope people will take the time to get out there and vote and encourage their friends and family to do the same. Josh, do you have a last minute question?
Hey, Harvey. I did. I know you've been a strong advocate against the housing sweeps that Eric Adams has been pushing. We still see those garbage trucks, especially like around 9th and B, right near your office. I know you see those. Have you had any conversation with the mayor or his office recently regarding that?
Yes, I've had numerous conversations with the mayor's office about it. Literally, the guy who sleeps right by my house on A, talk to him every single day, and every other day there's a sweep. And he just moves from one side of the street to the other. It's it's really a problem, and especially since they're not providing real services. We've our team, Chanel's on and John. We've been trying to have them a much more comprehensive approach. We've seen what the Union Square bid has been able to do with moving people into permanent housing. There's a real plan that can be effectuated, that can get people off the streets into permanent housing if they want to do it. At this point, we don't see a receptive partner at this point. So we talk to people who continue to be moved, and we're trying to provide services, whether that means helping get a Social Security card or getting a public benefits assistance, or when they're interacting with the police to provide a voice and to be there and be available for them. So we're doing all those things, but until they change the policy and a more comprehensive policy, I think we're going to continue to see these. And I would be happy to talk to the mayor's office again about it, but we've had this numerous times.
Thank you.
Susan, you're next.
Paul, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. I see your hand up.
Thanks. So I just wanted to confirm, I think I've spoken to someone in your office about this, but when you're working with the people who are homeless, you're going through the Goddard Homeless Outreach, working with them, right?
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that they were, and that they're the hub for all this. Thank you.
Yes. Not when I go buy breakfast for somebody or when I'm talking to them on the street, but more formally, yes.
I'm talking about services. I'm also interested, you mentioned that Union Square was getting people right into permanent housing and not into safe havens. Is that what you said?
That's what the bid has been telling us, yes.
So I will follow up on that because I don't understand how that could happen or how they have the same outreach people we do. So I will follow up on that and keep you in the loop also.
Okay, thank you. All right. Any other questions? I think that's it. Harvey. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks,
tonight.
Paul, and be well, everyone, and have a good 4th of July, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. All right, I'm going back in order. I don't see any other elected officials on, so I will go back in order. Congresswoman Velasquez's office. I thought I saw Alicia Yee on.
Thank you, Paul.
You have 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Good evening. On the Congressional Activity Report, as everybody know, President Biden signed into this past Saturday, he signed into law the first major gun safety legislation passed by Congress in nearly 30 years. This is bipartisan legislation that will strengthen gun control, take guns away from dangerous people, and then also invest resources into mental health programs for gun safety, and then also school safety programs. And it doesn't do nearly as much as we wish for gun safety and a gun control, but it's a start. And then the House also passed 2 additional gun control legislations that do more than the current, than what was signed into law. So the work continues. The House passed HR 7910, Protecting Our Kids Act. This bill will makes various changes to federal firearm laws, including to establish new criminal offenses and to expand the types of weapon and devices that are subject to regulation. So it prohibits the sale of certain semi-automatic firearms to individuals that are under 21 years old. And then the House also passed HR 2377, Federal Extreme Risk Protection Act. It red flags, it does more to take firearms out of dangerous individual by allowing like certain individuals, for example, gun enforcement officers or family member, to petition a court for a temporary order that prohibits at-risk individuals from purchasing and possessing firearms. And then the Congresswoman Velasquez will continue to advocate for more gun controls and legislation, and then for what's currently further gun control legislation that's passed by the House to be passed by the Senate. And the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe versus Wade, needless to say that she's shocked, and this is a very, this legislation, there will be very shocking and the insulting consequences of this ruling. She wants to continue working on the Congress to pass legislation to codify abortion access into the law. In fact, the Democrat House has already passed legislation to codify abortion access to, and then we are pushing for the Senate to follow suit. To the American people, to all of us, now it's the time to organize and make our voices heard on the ballot box. We shouldn't depend just on a Supreme Court ruling to secure abortion rights. What we need is a legislation that secures abortion access nationwide. Thank you.
Right, thank you. I don't see any hands up. All right, thank you. Is anybody here representing Congressmember Maloney's office?
Yes, this is Victor from Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney's office.
Go ahead, you have 2 minutes.
In light of the Supreme Court's decision in New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin, Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney released the following statement, quote, "The decision to add fuel to the fire of the gun violence epidemic, which has already devastated countless lives and communities across the country. Not only is the majority ruling out of touch with the American people, it is also out of touch with any reasonable interpretation of the Constitution. New York City, state, and the entire country will be less safe as a result of untrained individuals bringing concealed weapons into public spaces, putting everyday people in the line of fire. There is no saving grace for a court that puts ideology over the lives of Americans. It must be reformed," said Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney. These and other issues can be found at the Congresswoman's website at house.gov. Congresswoman Maloney also wishes the members of the board and the community a festive and safe July 4th. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Victor. I don't see any hands up for you either. All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right. This is Assembly Member News Office. Carlin, is there a question for the Congress member?
Yes, sir.
Victor, I think you have one question. Carlin, go ahead.
It's okay. If he's gone, it's okay. It's not important.
I'm still here.
Go ahead, ask.
Oh, okay. Am I allowed to ask?
Yes, go ahead, ask.
Okay. Is the Congresswoman under the impression that or the shootings that are happening in our inner cities is done by registered gun holders? Wouldn't it be easier if a person uses a licensed gun to shoot someone? Wouldn't it be easier to effect an arrest since that bullet and the gun is traceable?
You know what? I will bring this to the Congresswoman's attention. Thank you, Carl.
Okay, thank you, Victor, for staying on for that one. All right. Okay, Assembly Member News Office. I didn't hear any response. No? Okay. Assembly Member Glick's office.
Hi. Hi, everyone. I'm Tracy.
Tracy, go ahead.
Hi, how are you? I'm the Assembly Member's Chief of Staff. Many of you may know Charlie Anderson, who represented our office with CB3 for many, many years, but he has left us to go on to a wonderful new opportunity at the Department for Aging. So I will be the contact for now, and I'll put my information into the chat. So please feel free to reach out to me if anyone has any questions for our office. As Senator Kavanaugh and Assemblymember Epstein mentioned, we have a special session later this week to deal with the Supreme Court, the gun issue and reproductive rights issue potentially. But I also wanted to highlight, and I'll put this in our board report, I'll share this in the chat. 2 weeks ago on June 13th, the governor signed a package of bills that were passed through both houses this session that do strengthen some of our reproductive rights, strengthen some of our rights, including protections for abortion providers in New York if they provide services to people who travel to New York from other states. So we have a couple of bills that would add in some protections for those providers so that they can't be persecuted by other states. So I'll share that in the link. And then finally, I just wanted to mention one of the pieces of legislation that Assemblymember Glick has been working on for a very long time was the speed camera program that many of you may know about. And the governor did sign into law just on Friday, it's already gone into effect, allowing the speed camera program to operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we are really pleased with that and expect that it will help reduce traffic crashes and traffic violence that has been plaguing the city this year. And I think that's my 2 minutes, but I'll put my contact information in the chat. Please feel free to, oh, that's my timer. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Once again, I'm just going to keep hammering with all the state electeds. So if you can sneak in open meeting law and stuff, it'd be absolutely great.
I took note, but as I defer to the members who have already said it's unlikely for this week because it's already a robust agenda, but I'll bring that back to Assemblymember Glick as well. Thanks.
I'm going to be Steph Curry out here. I'm going to keep shooting. Eventually, I'm going to hit some threes. So we'll keep it moving. Thank you. Any questions? Go ahead, Susan. You had your hand up or no? Or was that just a high five?
Yeah, no. Tracy, I know the state elected officials are working on a meeting with the SLA commissioner for boards 1, 2, and 3. And I had heard that you're looking at a date, you collectively, but we don't have the date. Is there a date that should be run by the boards? You can get back to me later if you want.
Okay.
We don't have to talk about it now.
I can tell you, I heard back from the SLA, I think on Friday. It's been a very hectic few days, as you might imagine. But they did get back to us and suggested some dates throughout the summer in late July and some in August. And I just haven't had a chance to circulate them yet, but I will. So they're proposing that the meeting take place on the same day as one of their board meetings, because the chairman will be in town in person in their offices here. But I will circulate those dates for sure tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. Okay, next person I have on my list is Senator Hoylman's office. I thought I saw Caroline on. Am I correct?
You are. Hi.
There we go.
Hi.
Just
Now we're back.
actually pause the recording really quick, please.
What?
Thank you. Pause the recording.
Wait.
I think we're good now. Thank you. All right. All right, Tracy, I think just put her information in the chat. So let's hit the rewind button. And now I'm gonna come back to Caroline. Is Caroline on?
I am.
Okay, you can start over again. Go right ahead.
Take two. Hi, I'm Caroline Wexelbaum from State Senator Brad Hoylman's office. And I dropped our board report in the chat in an effort not to repeat what other speakers said. I wanted to highlight election days tomorrow. We know that. I was also going to highlight the gun package that we passed earlier in session and some protections, including codifying Roe v. Wade in anticipation of the Supreme Court decision that came out last week. Another issue I just wanted to highlight is the monkeypox vaccine information. So as of today, we reached out to the Department of Health. Senator Hoylman led a letter which was sent last Friday, basically requesting that New York City be prioritized in the allocation of monkeypox vaccines. Last week, we were given 1,000 by the federal government. It was split into 200 per day for 5 days, and we have not received new vaccine. I believe the allocation that we received today would have been the last day, and we have not received new allocation. So unfortunately, there are no appointments available and no walk-ins because there's no vaccine. But we can keep you posted. I'm sure they'll report it on the news when they get more. And we're doing as much advocacy as we possibly can to try to get New York City, which is arguably the place with the greatest need in the country, get us additional vaccine. So I'm pretty sure folks covered different aspects of what I was going to talk about in our board report. And thank you so much. Oh, and Paul, open meetings law, Senator Hoylman is supportive and we are following up, anticipating that question.
I'm going to put my Steph Curry jersey on just in case, so I could keep shooting that question. But thank you. Thank you, Caroline. Does anybody else have any questions for Caroline? Okay. Thank you. All right. We're almost at the end. All right. Of this portion. Councilmember Marte's office.
Hi, everyone.
Go right ahead.
So sorry. Our office, sorry, I don't know why my camera's not working. We had our office opening about 2 weeks ago. We're located at 65 East Broadway with a storefront office. Please come by if you want to check out the space or have any issues that you'd like to share with us. As for budget updates, last meeting we said that we were finalizing it, and we're happy to share that with the budget now being finalized, every single NYCHA development that is in our district is going to be receiving more funding than ever within City Council, and that includes funding the park by Seward Park Extension. And then we're also going to be fixing the drainage system within the complex. And then one senior center is even receiving Wi-Fi for the first time. Our office also wrote a letter to the mayor and comptroller regarding the woman incarcerated at Rikers. We're asking for the women at Rikers to be moved into the renovated Manhattan Detention Center instead of a new facility in Queens for men and women. And we're doing this because a lot of the women in Rikers have been abused by men. So we want it just to be a safer environment in a facility where it's only women. And then we also wanted to put out a reminder to vote tomorrow in the primaries. And our office is also going to update everyone once redistricting happens. And we're planning to host a town hall later on in the summer about it, regarding it.
All right. Okay, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. I wrote to the office asking about a request by the 5th Precinct and a number of people in the neighborhood for, there's some funding, I understand, for MTA cameras in the Grand Street Station, which, as we know, was the place that one of the alleged murderers used to hang out in, and something else has happened there recently again. So has there been any movement on that, or are there other electeds that you are aware of? Mostly we want to help them get the cameras there so that we can, they can do their work and the community can feel a little bit safer.
Let me check in with the budget director and I could look at the spreadsheet again. But I'll drop my info in the chat and we can talk online and I can connect with you about it.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. Okay, Carlin Chan, go ahead.
Yes. Why would Councilmember Marty think that moving women into a Chinatown jail would make them safer? And wouldn't this be removing them from this borough-based prison plan where they'll be closer to their families?
So I think the current plan puts the woman into a facility with both men and women in Queens. But then in the Manhattan Detention Center, it would just be women. So they wouldn't be triggered by the abuses that they faced. And all the letters that we send out as an office are also like public for everyone to see on our website. And I can also share that.
Okay. Final two questions. Arnett, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Thanks, Paul. Question: which building, or can you tell me at least the area for the senior citizen building that's receiving the Wi-Fi?
That I specifically have to still look into, but I do know that because I was at the Seward Park like TA meeting, I do know that like those two things were funded. As for the Wi-Fi center, I can follow up for you.
All right, final two questions. I see Susan and I see May. Susan, then May.
They may be related. First, I want to ask you, Jennifer, could you put the community board on your CC list for those letters? Because, I think we'd like to, like to be aware also and see which things, we can support. And okay. I don't know if, this is terrible. I can't remember if I sent this email to your office or whether I intended to. But we were asking, I know the council members on the Committee for Aging, And we were asking if we could get help. I think I did send it. If we could get help with our district needs with some information to speak with your office on that.
Okay.
Go ahead, May.
Yeah, that was actually my question. And yeah, Susan, you did send the email because I was CC'd on it. So Jennifer, we'd appreciate a follow-up, and also for all the other committees that the council member sits on at City Council. Well, I'm the chair of the Human Services, this Human Services Committee at CB3. So we're always interested in talking to our council members about what they're seeing in terms of, from their viewpoint as a member of the City Council Committee. Well, I'm sorry, I don't have the whole list of committees that, the City Council member is on, but we're certainly interested, year round to hear from the council member what, he's hearing on his committee. But at Human Services, we are. Okay, so if you can follow up with us, that would be great.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, May. I don't see any other questions, Jennifer. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Rivera's office. I thought I saw Katie on before. Am I correct?
Hello, yes, you are correct. Thank you so much. All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Katie Loeb from Councilmember Carlina Rivera's office. I know you're used to seeing Isabel, but she's unavailable tonight on a Monday, so I'm filling in and just have a few updates for everyone. Tomorrow, Carlina will be chairing a committee hearing as chair of the Committee on Criminal Justice related to the mayor's interagency task force on Rikers Island. This hearing will begin at 10 a.m. and will be live streamed on the council's website. You can also submit testimony at council.nyc.gov/testify. She also introduced legislation to ban solitary confinement along with public advocate Jumani Williams. The councilwoman was very troubled to see some of the negative language and actions around Drag Queen Story Hour, and would just like to reaffirm her support for Drag Queen Story Hour, specifically in this time, especially when some of her colleagues were using dangerous language. They are a fantastic resource that is beloved by our public schools and libraries, and she was happy to welcome them to Avenue B on the open street last week. And a big thank you to all of our partners there, Fab NYC, the Open Street Coalition, for making sure that the event was safely attended and enjoyed by all. And also wanted to let everybody know about the Jobs Plus Resource Fair, which is this Thursday, June 30th. And I have a flyer that I can share with the board office.
Richard has his hand up. Richard, go ahead. Yeah, I'll mute Richard. Go ahead.
Thanks, Paul. Katie, I don't know if you were listening in during public session with the comments from the folks from 14th Street. It was a little disturbing to hear that they did not seem to be able to get their point across well, and that the proposed plan, the environmental impact statement, did not take into consideration the buildings immediately adjacent and surrounding the proposed development. Can you clarify the councilwoman's position concerning that part of the project?
Yeah, so the councilwoman was very aware of the development going up and understands that the co-op met with the developers, and there was a special request to meet for the developers to meet specifically with the co-op before or between the two community board meetings, which was honored. And I know that the NYCHA Tenant Association had been working very closely on this. And so while, I appreciate the feedback and the comments, and especially the comments about the city's review process, We do understand that the board had a fair hearing or a fair meeting about it, and we respect the board's ultimate resolution.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. I don't see any other hands up for Katie. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Okay, it's DA Bragg's office on. DA Bragg's office? No, not on today. All right. Okay, so that is it for our elected official reports. We will be moving into the approval
I'm
of.
sorry. Before you do that, can you check if Yulee News Office is back or here at all? Thank you.
Sure, I'll do one more check. Assembly Member News Office.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I don't see anybody else on. We're going to move forward. Thank you to the elected officials who came on tonight. Those who spoke, Senator Kavanaugh and Assemblymember Epstein, I know they have maybe some of their representatives on. If you want to drop your official reports in the chat, that would be great. We will be moving on. So now we'll move forward with the attendance and the approval of minutes from April of 2022. Larissa, go right ahead.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, roll call and vote on the minutes. David Adams.
Yes.
Yaron Altman. Sarah Rose Bachu. Lee Berman.
Yes, here.
Thank you. Ana Calderon.
Here.
Carlin Chan.
Yes.
David Crane.
Here.
Eric Diaz. Eric.
Not on.
Okay, Tariq Durrell.
Yes.
Alistair Economacus.
Yes.
Jamie Belber.
Yes.
Larry Fenn.
Here.
Shirley Fennessy. Shirley on? I don't see her. Catherine Freed.
Yes, I'm here.
Ryan Gilliam.
Yes.
Deborah Glass. Deborah, I thought I saw her. I guess not. Okay. Jake Gold.
Yes.
Andrea Gordillo.
Yes.
Caniel Hernandez.
Yes.
Thank you. Herman Hewitt. Herman on? Trevor Holland.
Yes. Herman.
Oh, Herman. Thank you, Herman.
And
Gotcha.
yes, Trevor.
Thank you, Trevor. Valentina Jones.
Yeah.
Olympia Kazi. Didn't think I saw
Yes.
her. Oh, there you
Can
are,
you hear
Olympia.
me?
I did. I
Hello?
got you. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
thank you.
Okay, Jeanette Kim. Jeanette Kim. Michelle Cooper Smith.
Present, yes.
And May Lee.
Yes.
Wendy Lee.
Yes.
Alicia Lewis Coleman.
Yes, yes, yes.
Amanda Liu.
Yes.
David Louie.
Yes.
Laura Lugo.
Yes.
Thank you. Paul Rangel.
Yes.
Damaris Reyes.
Yes.
Richard Ropiak.
Yes.
Thomas Rosa.
Yes.
Robin Chattel. Robin. Okay. Heidi Schmidt.
Here.
Arnett Scott,
Here.
Larissa Shaneberg, yes. Anisha Stevens,
Yes.
Sandra Struther,
Yes.
Daniel Tainow,
Present.
thank you. Josephine Velez,
Yes.
Troy Velez,
Yes.
Rodney Washington,
Yes.
Joshua Waterman,
Here.
Kathleen Webster,
Here.
Jackie Wong. Jackie? Okay. July Yang.
Yes.
Okay, that completes roll call. Thank you.
Thank you, Larissa. All right, good evening once again, everyone. Sorry for that hiccup. I promise you I did not hit end meeting. It just crashed. I don't know what happened, but hopefully it's fine now. So for my report tonight, I just want to once again address open meeting law and open meetings. Next in July for our full board meeting, we'll be meeting at Cooper Union, which I hope is a better location in terms of ventilation and whatnot. That will be our July meeting space for the full board unless something different comes up. We did get notification that the executive order was extended to July 14th. That was before I asked around to see if we can move up today, because the original executive order was set to expire today and we would have had to do all the hybrid stuff beginning tomorrow. So that's why I asked for this meeting to be tonight instead of the normal Tuesday night. So that's where we're at. So we'll be at Cooper Union next month in the month of July. So I want to talk about an opening on the executive committee. One of the secretary positions is now open. Unfortunately, Laura Lugo had to step down the role. We will be reopening that election process. That election process will be conducted by our first vice chair, Eric Diaz. He's not on tonight, but he will be reaching out with asking for nominations, and hopefully we can have an election for the next secretary, the second secretary position for next month's full board. There is a new member party on July 10th. You may have received an email from Tariq Darrell in regard to that. Hopefully everyone can come, or mostly everyone can come. This will be at the district office, and there's no pressure for anybody to bring food or drink or decorations or anything like that. But I will take Best Buy gift cards. I'm just kidding. Definitely come by. Definitely for the new members from this year, last year, and 2020 who joined us during the Zoom era, please try to make it and be a part of it, because you've been on Zoom most of this time during your time on the community board, and be a good time to kind of get a chance to see each other face to face and chat it up, and definitely meet with committee chairs and other members of the board outside of this Hollywood Squares kind of thing, which I like from time to time, but not all the time. So definitely come on out. In terms of committee assignments, I will be reaching out to all the new members shortly. I will be scheduling times to call and hopefully get a chance to chat with you. I have all your rankings. A lot of people are picking the same things. That's fine. But I have to think about the needs of every committee that we have, even with potential changes coming down the road. I do want to see and speak to everybody, at least on the phone, to get a feel for what their interests are outside of what their resume says and their board application and what they've checked off. I do want to get a chance to talk and speak with all of you about your choices and get a chance to know all of you as well. Hopefully we can do that this week. So I'll be sending out times and so that we can speak, and hopefully I'll cut into some of my work time if possible. Usually lunch when I'm scarfing down a hamburger. We can definitely chat it up at that point. I will also be reaching out to the committee chairs asking for their needs, as I know there's some committees that took a little bit more of a hit than others in terms of membership lost. So I have to think about everyone and fulfilling needs. The committee request form was sent out to everyone. So if you were thinking about making a change, maybe wanting to try out a different committee, this is the time. This is the time to do it. If you want to still send it, please. I'm trying to make decisions by this weekend, though, preferably before the 4th of July and before the first committee meeting starts up. So that's where we're at. We also sent out a letter in support of 9/11 Commission. I believe it was a resolution that was passed several years ago. Correct me if I'm wrong, Val. It was something that we had supported, and they asked for another letter of support. And it was easy to send that over. It was pretty much reaffirming everything we had said in that resolution. So that's what we did there. As you see, I am trying to hammer the state elected officials about the open meeting law requirements. I know that was a very icky resolution that we had to pass last board meeting. I'm not a big fan of the open meeting law as it's constructed. So we would like to figure a lot of that stuff out. Hopefully things will change. I know they have the special session coming up. I know it may not get in there, but I think it's important that we keep hammering and seeing what we can do. But I think it is going to kind of remain the way it is, unfortunately, and the way they've written it out. Laura Lugo did email me earlier. I believe there was an invitation to the community board for an art exhibit. Laura, can you correct me if I'm wrong? If it was an art exhibit uptown or something like that that the board has been invited to, and we were asked to say something. I know you got something extremely late. Can you just expand on that a little bit?
Hi, so it's from a fellow neighbor and community resident that had lost her mother during COVID and is doing an art exhibit for all of those that have lost their family members to COVID uptown. I will be sending the invites and the flyer to Susan so she can send it out to everyone on the board. She would like for everyone to please just get the word out and have as many people as we can, because we just recently found out that Lower East Side was hit the most with COVID deaths, and she wants to highlight that through art. So if you can and have the time, I believe it's July 7th, but I'll have Susan, if she can, just send it out to everyone.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so that is it for my report tonight. I will say more stuff during the executive committee report, and we'll go from there. Carlin, I see that you have your hand up. Sorry to keep you waiting. Go ahead.
I just want to know where we are at the hybrid meeting.
Where we are in the hybrid meeting, what's the specific question with this?
Are we having hybrid meetings also?
Well, next month, I
full
believe
board?
we're going to be fully on site. I don't know if we're going to be fully hybrid for July, for the full board. I'll double check it, but right now it looks like it's straight up face-to-face, full board.
No, the committees are all virtual.
Committee's all virtual, not the full board. Everything up until the executive order is up until July 14th, so every committee meeting will be virtual up until.
The full board will not be hybrid.
Thank you, Carlin. Sandra Strother, go ahead.
You just said you're going to leave some stuff for the executive committee. You know, I coordinate election site in the morning. I have to be there at 5 a.m., so I won't be able to stay on all night. I'm just asking, are you going to be discussing the NYCHA subcommittee at the executive report tonight?
Yes.
Okay, when does that happen? The executive committee report. I thought you gave a report and Susan gave a report and the chairs. When does that happen exactly?
In the agenda that was sent to your email on Friday, there is my report, the district manager's report, then the executive committee report, which is me again.
Oh, okay. Never had it before. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, everyone, thank you for, this is my report for tonight. I will move over to the district manager and her report.
Okay, thank you. First, I want to remind everybody again that for the full board, you should be getting a reminder email. It's sent out automatically from Zoom a week before, a day before, and an hour before. That email has a link that if you click on that link, and this is also for all the elected officials and their reps. If you click on that link, you will automatically enter as a panelist. So it'll be a lot easier for you. And if there's the meeting accidentally ends and comes back, you'll still be in the right place. I want to urge people to use those links. A lot of people have commented about the open restaurant sheds, complaints about abandoned sheds, sheds that are not compliant. DOT has asked us for a list. They are beginning to send out inspectors, although it still takes a while. So the community board is working with Councilmember Rivera's office to utilize their summer interns to do inspections, to make up a list. And I also want to urge people, if you know of any particular sheds that you think are a problem in one way or another, ones that are attached to buildings are also non-compliant, and tables and chairs on the sidewalk at the curb, not at the building, are also non-compliant. So it's very helpful to get that information. There are being changes made to the Avenue A and Avenue D bus lanes. That's going to entail the removal of parking. Some of the elected officials' office and the community board office have received lots of questions about it. So we are setting up a meeting with DOT to get more information. I think one of the problems that happen is DOT generally flyers an area to say what is going on here. And they said they flyered for these bus lanes, but I think they did not, because I live in between two of the impacted areas and I haven't seen any flyers. So we will be meeting just to get more information on that. Also asking for more complaints. In past meetings recently, there have been issues brought up regarding shelters and fair share facilities, but we're not getting specific issues in the office. If there are issues or problems that you're experiencing or you know people experiencing, please have them send it in. We can mitigate, we can make everything perfect, but we certainly can mitigate some of them. So it's very helpful if you send them in. For next month at the Rose Auditorium in Cooper Union, we meet there every July, except for the two years we didn't meet in because of COVID. We don't meet in PS20 during the summer because the schools are closed. So we will be meeting at the Rose Auditorium. Both masks and vaccination and boosters are required. You have to bring proof of being boosted. And the Cooper Union is, they're the ones that will be checking that. We cannot require that, but we can meet in a venue that requires it, so they will be checking that. On the agendas in the following month is district needs statement. There will always be questions about that, particularly from new members. I want to urge anyone that has any questions to contact the board office, and we can walk through some of it before the meeting if you prefer. But I just want to give a brief summary about what a district needs statement is, and you can read last year's on our website, on our About CB3. So community boards start their participation in the budget process in May. At this time, the mayor and city council will be finalizing the budget for the coming fiscal year, which will start July 1st. The community boards start working on the budget for the following year. So right now, we're going to be working on the budget for the fiscal year 2024, which will be a year from this July 1st. The first step is the district needs statement. This document describes our community, geographic, demographic, socioeconomic conditions that give rise to needs. An example, you might talk about the number of seniors living in poverty. We assess our needs with a focus on unmet needs or problems. We can recommend projects or activities to meet needs that might be short-term or long-term strategies, or we may not have recommendations to resolve a problem. And not every problem can be resolved by funding a project. Strategies to meet needs can be suggestions for programming or capital projects. And then after the district needs, the next step will be budget priorities. Well, we will be voting in October on very specific budget priorities. District needs statement is not a policy document. It is assessment of the needs of our specific district, and all the information should be documented. I will be trying to be at all the July meetings to talk about this and help work on the statement for the coming year. Just two upcoming things. Per discussion with the executive committee, I'm going to be contacting Conflict of Interest Board to try and do training for the board members probably next September, and to target it for issues that come up specifically for board members at meetings. And next month, Middle Collegiate Church will be coming to our full board meeting to be giving us an update on the status of their rebuilding. And that's it, unless there's any questions.
Are there any questions for the district manager? Nothing. All right.
Oh, I'm
Okay.
sorry, I had a question about.
Go ahead, May.
I'm sorry. The full board meeting, it was approved for vaccination and booster. There's one
Yes.
booster, or they don't care, right?
I think it's just the one booster.
One booster, yeah. The second booster is not actually recommended for everybody yet.
Okay.
So it's proof of vaccination and booster. I asked for a booster seat, if that helps. All right. Okay, so thank you, Susan. I will move on to the executive committee. So at executive this Thursday night, we did meet on site at the district office. It was not on Zoom. We did meet as an executive committee on site for the first time in a very long time, outside of one hybrid meeting that we had in March. So it was good to see everyone, all the members of the executive that were there. So we did discuss, and one of my proposals at executive committee
Happened again.
You can stop the recording.
Why? Paul's, everybody's on, I believe.
Stop. Can you just stop?
There's nowhere near everyone.
Sorry, guys. Okay, so at exec, I did discuss. No,
Says, I'm sorry. It says 6:30 to 9:30, so I don't think that's what's doing it.
Okay, so something's going on. Okay. May need IT to check into that, Susan, when you get a chance tomorrow. Sorry. So we did discuss at the exec the potential dissolving of the NYCHA Section 8 subcommittee. The reason for this on my end, since I've been on the board, I have not seen many NYCHA Section 8 subcommittee meetings or agenda items, and this is before I became chair. And recently before, and as I became chair back in November, there's been one meeting, maybe two. I'm looking at committee restructuring overall. And tomorrow, you will be receiving a notice of some bylaw changes that we approved that exec, or we're starting, so we looked at it exec, and we will eventually talk about at the July meeting about committee restructuring. And this is part of that grand idea that I've had for a while. So we did talk about committee restructuring in length, and in particular, this committee. If Larissa, can you pull up the resolution, please?
Sure, just give me a few moments. Oh,
Sure.
I think I need to be made co-host again. Oh, wait, I am.
No, you're a co-host.
Okay.
You're good.
Yeah, my dear. Okay, thank you. Give me one moment. Okay. I'm going to just mute for just a moment. It's going to take me some time. I've got a lot of windows open.
Okay. While Larissa gets that ready, a lot of my thinking behind this is, I want more efficiency from committees and potential different names of committees that you'll see soon. And what I want us to do in being more effective as a board. So this is part of that. Community Board 3 was the only one that had a NYCHA Section 8 subcommittee. And it's really to elevate this portion up back to the land use committee where it had always resided. So this gives the NYCHA portion more opportunities at different agenda items to be heard on a monthly basis. So I think restoring it back to its original location where it's heard, I think gives it a little bit more teeth, for lack of a better phrase. So instead of meeting every other month and then canceling and not having items or having limited items, I think this gives it a little bit more strength, putting it directly under the land use, which it had already, or it already answered to. It's kind of duplicating the work. So we're putting back pretty much anything NYCHA related, which is already in the title of the land use committee, into that portion for every month. Once the resolution comes up, I'll read it and I'll take questions right after that. Let me know when you're ready, Larissa.
Apologies, sorry, I just have a lot open and
that's fine.
The names are.
It's in the vote sheet, so if you want
Yep.
to pull up your vote sheet,
I'm going to do that.
You can do that,
a lot
and that's for
easier.
everyone on the board in the email. The last email that Ed sent out on Friday. There we go. I could read off there. There we go. Let me just scroll up a little bit. All right, thank you. Arnett, I'll take your question. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, my internet froze for a second. Did you explain or give some backstory as to why it was removed from land use and placed?
As a subcommittee?
Yeah.
Okay. I believe it was placed as a subcommittee several years ago. Even before I joined the board, there were some subcommittees created. I'm sure the veteran members of the board can answer that question a lot more better than I can, even. But I think this is the time to push it back and restore it fully into the land use committee, just because it's been struggling. So
Okay.
thank you. No, thank you. Mr. Other.
Okay, I have several comments about this. First of all, to answer that question about why, the statement that you made about why we're the only one. First, no, let me start with why it's put back and made a separate committee. As you know, we have the highest concentration of NYCHA developments in CB3, not only in the city, but probably in the entire country, from 14th Street down to City Hall. So there was definite need to have a designated committee for this. Also, we have a responsibility to the community. And the community needs to have a voice. So I don't know. So my question to you is, who is responsible for setting the agenda items? And where's the dereliction at? I mean, the meetings haven't been held, as we know, even in the midst of all of this incredible new legislation that has just been brought. I mean, the community does not know about this RAD. They don't know about what's going on and what's affecting their homes. And I think as a community board, we have a responsibility to address these issues. I think land use is already overburdened. I think if we had, if you could answer the question about who sets the agenda, I mean, I know of several developments that could have items put on every month. I mean, whose responsibility is it to set the agenda items?
It's committee chairs, but I see Alicia Lewis Coleman has her hand up. Alicia, go ahead.
Okay, so this goes back before my time that we had a NYCHA subcommittee, and it's not NYCHA, it was NYCHA and Section 8 subcommittee. And for several years, like Paul did say, we have been struggling as a committee from various chairs before my time as chairperson of the board. And thereafter, every chairperson that was appointed to the NYCHA and Section 8 subcommittee, everyone had struggled with coming up with agenda items for a monthly meeting. And this was a discussion for a while with past subcommittee chairmen and chairpersons, just to say, this is not something that Paul just came up out of the air. This is something that has been happening. We did discuss RAD over the years. I mean, from Lisa to Nancy to Troy. I mean, RAD has been discussed over and over again, but then nothing goes from there. It's a discussion. And so I think on several times we've had opportunities to have NYCHA leadership come out and speak to us. And I think at the last meeting, I discussed with the committee that I wanted for us to all break up and have, members from those NYCHA developments come out, members of the leadership of the NYCHA developments in the area to come out and discuss what systemically was going on. This is not a building, personal place to, house comments or situations. We tried our very best to address many of the situations, and a lot of it NYCHA has been working on. I know Damaris knows a little bit more than me, and I see her hand is up as well. And I know that there has been a struggle. Going back under the land use committee, I think it broke up at one point because, like you said, Sandra, yes, there were a lot of topics happening. But at this point, we are all trying to figure out what is going on with NYCHA. NYCHA is being broken up into different components, and different management companies are taking over some of the developments because of all the systemic issues going on in NYCHA right now. I'll let Damaris talk for a minute, and if there's anything further I need to say, I'll say it.
Thank you, Alicia. Damaris, go right ahead, please.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm speaking in turn here appropriately to the issue. And so just to be clear, am I correct that there is either a resolution or a desire to disband the subcommittee, right? And that's the nature of this conversation. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. So while I do agree with Alicia that the committee, has heard about RAD and other things, that doesn't mean that these issues are over or that we are out of the woods. And I would say that my recommendation would be to remain a committee, but to meet quarterly or as necessary. Even if RAD has been discussed in the past, RAD is a case-by-case basis, and it impacts each development independently. And but RAD isn't the only issue that NYCHA is dealing with. There's also still the blueprint, which has now the Preservation Trust, which has been enacted into legislation. And over the next few months, there are going to be several hearings to talk about, how to take the bill and turn it into policy and rule. There are a lot of issues that come up with NYCHA, so I wouldn't disband it. My recommendation would be to keep it and have it be quarterly or, ad hoc as necessary, as other committees or subcommittees on this board have been allowed to exist over time with the same sort of issues. That would be my recommendation.
Can I also add, at our last meeting in December, we talked about outreach to individuals. We were supposed to, Alicia, we talked about assigning people to reach out, to different developments. Like Damaris said, decisions have to be made. The opt-in has to be made. And I think that it's only right. And I agree with you, Damaris. We don't have to meet every month, but I think it would be overburdening of land use to put it on even when the issues come up. So that's it. Thank you, Damaris.
Thank you. Please make sure I call on you before interjecting. Thank you. Arnett, go ahead.
Sorry about that. Okay. And listening to Damaris and Alicia, I'm sorry if I pronounced her name wrong, either one. That's why I was asking why did we have it in the first place as a subcommittee? And I get what you're saying, because you don't want to have a whole bunch of stuff on there that we're not using, and it's it could look like almost like a waste of resource when you have people on subcommittees that could actually be working on other committees and having a little more of a robust conversation, and that makes sense. But as we're looking at our community as a whole for right now, we have a lot of housing issues, and I agree with Damaris as having at ad hoc or maybe quarterly, because I think it would be a little harder to start up another committee when something comes up, when land use and our meetings go extremely long, when we have to address NYCHA. And I think a lot of times NYCHA residents feel like their voices are not heard. People are not listening to them, and they're speaking into these hollow echo chambers when they're just talking in their resident meetings. And a lot of times there's not a lot of people that come to resident meetings unless there's a big thing. So it would make sense where we would have an issue of getting people in, because a lot of times like people don't show up or issues are not germane until it's almost like in our faces. So part of being, I guess, at ad hoc would be almost like watchdogs and trying to watch out what's coming, see what's coming on the pipeline, and actually having these questions made when our elected officials are speaking. If the subcommittee people were had their ears to the ground and listening up, they can possibly ask questions that would facilitate a meeting 3 months down the line or a month down the line, and so that we can inform the residents and such. But I it's like a double-edged sword. I get what you're saying, Paul, but I really feel if we disband it, it would be harder to, not harder, but then we'll we will use more time in order to do a resolution to open it back up. But if we keep it, then we would have the wiggle room, so when the things are too much in land use, that we can go on to the subcommittee, and this way people can still feel like their voices are heard, and there'll be less manpower and administrative work in order to get it back together. That's just my suggestion, but I can see where the issue is.
Thank you. Anisha, I see your hand up.
Just a couple of points. I really understand the importance of giving residents that live in NYCHA and in Section 8 the space to be able to be heard. I do, however, think that there is value in also having that heard at land use. I think the last 2 land use committee meetings are sort of a perfect example of that, where we had a land use item that really had a big NYCHA component to it, but we don't have so many committee members on that committee that speak to that experience. The purpose of the land use, public housing and private housing committee is really to discuss all of those things. Housing, as we all know, is made up of lots of different types of housing. And when you don't have a robust understanding and point of view at the land use committee, it creates unequal outcomes. And frankly, some of the feedback that we heard in some of the past meetings have been that NYCHA residents did not feel comfortable speaking at the land use meeting because of other community members taking up all the space. So I do think that it's important that there is representation of many different points of view on the land use committee as well.
Thank you, Anisha. I'm going to skip around to people who have not spoken yet. May, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't go to the exec meeting this past Thursday, but I was wondering, I mean, what Anisha said really makes sense to me, but but then somebody also mentioned the blueprint and RAD, and I was wondering if it's worth it to have a task force about that. So a task force is like has a specific purpose and a limited purpose, because once the, so the purpose of such a task force maybe is about the blueprint, or it's about RAD and it meets when needed. So that might address some of a place to meet around that if it doesn't fit in land use all the time.
Okay,
It's just a suggestion. I don't mean to,
No, it's all right. Thank you, May.
raise more
Okay.
things, but just.
Okay, thank you, May. I see 3 more hands and then we'll end debate. I see Olympia, Alicia, Damaris in that order. Go ahead, Olympia.
Thank you, Paul. So for those who don't know, I serve on land use, and I've been there a little while, and I actually want to echo what Annette and Damaris have said. I believe we need to keep the subcommittee, because then this is a space where certain conversations can be had more in depth. However, what has happened over the years is there has been such a turnover of committee members and subcommittee members where we don't overlap as much as we used to. But that can be fixed. Me personally, when I would see in the agenda of housing of NYCHA subcommittee, something that I thought was, was going to have a resolution that we would see at land use, I would always attend that meeting. I believe that land use very often has very complex, long conversations about a lot of things. And we wouldn't want not to be able to give to NYCHA housing the attention that it needs to have. So I think keeping the subcommittee will give us a flexibility that will serve the greater community better. So I agree with Annette and Damaris, and a lot of the issues that Anissa have brought up, I think, are a conflation of confusion that has been going on because of a lot of turnover of memberships, etc., and the way we conduct business. But losing the subcommittee would be an error at this point. Thank you.
Troy, your hand is up.
Yes, I just have a question, Paul. have we thought about making this a committee itself instead of a subcommittee? I think some of the problem is that the subcommittee reports to land use, and everybody that votes on things that happen in the subcommittee are not at the meetings. So there's a disconnect in putting it as a subcommittee itself. Just my thoughts on it.
Okay, I'll answer that after I go through everybody else's hands. Alicia and then Damaris, and then I'll close the debate.
Yeah, for a long time, we have struggled, Olympia, you're right, with attendance. We struggle with attendance of members. We struggle with attendance of leadership in NYCHA. I think whenever there is a hot topic, people do show up and then it fizzles out. I think that it's a lot of push-pull. And of course, NYCHA development is always going to be hot topic because there's always a need. There's always going to be a need because we know that right now, everything's in disarray. I mean, money's all over the place. There's a lot of repairs and disarray, and many of the developments are like being remanaged or restructured. So I mean, I want to support what's best for us at this time. And I do believe for those that have been on the community board a lot longer than myself, Herman's been here a lot longer than I. Even Richard, you've been on a lot longer than I. And so, when it was under land use, and I do believe you both served under land use before. And so you can give and attest to, what has happened. But I mean, I'm going to support what's best for the community board and the board. I mean, the community and the board.
Sorry. Thank you, Alicia. Damaris, go ahead.
I guess, look, for me, I really don't understand what this debate is about. The only thing that I could wrap my head around here is if people feel like we're spending our time in two places where we shouldn't be and we should be putting our efforts somewhere else. I think there's a few things that are true. There have been issues with attendance, and we do need to make sure that people that are at the subcommittee, or at least someone who can report back, is at the full land use committee. I think it is also true that there are very tenuous issues that come across land use that take up a lot of time. And also just to respond to Alicia's comment about who's been here for a long time. I've also been here for a really long time too, both as a public member and then as a full member. And my experience is that public housing and Section 8 are not often given its due. And so, again, if it is about our resources, then we don't have to meet if there's nothing to talk about. But if there's something to talk about, for me, it feels like a wasted opportunity to not have us ready to be able to tackle those issues in a meaningful way. I don't want to go to land use and give public housing, 5-10 minutes because it doesn't, speak to everybody's concerns. And then we talk about other issues for 20, 30, and 40 minutes. And that has been historically what has happened. What we experienced this last time with the Compost Plaza air rights, that is not a typical way in which we give time to public housing on this committee. And so, Anisha, while I can appreciate where you're at, I would say that for me, until we are clear about how land use is going to spread itself across all housing issues in a way that is equitable, I'm going to continue to urge this committee to keep the both of them separate.
Okay, thank you. Susan.
Yeah, I don't know if this matters at all, just correcting some facts. The most NYCHA in Manhattan is in CB11 and then CB3, and then there are boards in Queens that have more than either of us. So I just wanted to give that information.
Susan, just a quick question. None of those boards have a separate NYCHA section.
No, none of those. None of them do.
Okay. Thank you. Tariq, did you have your hand up? I didn't see you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Susan.
I just put it up if I'm allowed to say something.
Oh.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, no, as a person who lives in NYCHA and as a person who is also what I've noticed, I serve on the transportation committee and I serve on both arts and culture and NYCHA subcommittee. And I have noticed the attention that this board and community board gives to transportation and the other committees is more present than it is to the subcommittees. And NYCHA and arts and culture are two major things, especially in the district that we serve. And so I do urge this community board to keep this subcommittee separate from land use. And I think that we should be having conversations as a community board on how we as people who are serving better our outreach, our engagement with the community, and also address the lack of leadership that is occurring on committees and as a board as a whole. And so I agree with a lot of the sentiments that have been stated here. And so I don't agree with this. And I was not at the exec meeting this Thursday, but this is concerning for me.
Thank you, Tariq. Damaris, last comment, and then I will speak.
Thank you. I appreciate that you're giving me a last chance to speak. I just want to say that, one of the issues that NYCHA residents feel and face often is not feeling like their voices and their opinions are valued and that their expertise is valued. And so for me, I feel like that's a message that we might, be sending by dismantling this committee at this point, if we think that only, I'm not saying that this is the reason that we're doing it, but I think that some folks could feel like we're bringing it back there to the land use committee because we cannot trust that we can bring, we can't trust that we will have adequate representation and expertise that can bring what happened at the subcommittee to the full committee when necessary. And I urge us to think differently about that, because I do think that there are, everyone on this community board has experience, and even if they have things to learn, I think we are all experts in understanding what is right for our communities.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Can I make one last statement, Paul, please?
Yes, go ahead.
First, I want to thank you, Susan. I heard that and I should have researched that myself about how many NYCHA we have. But I also want to stress what Damaris just said and remind us what was said today by Carol and the residents at near Campos today. They specifically said that they don't think that the NYCHA developments over there especially get the attention and get their voices heard and get any support from the community board. And that's just what it's going around. No one believes in us anymore. And I think that if we dismantle this committee, that will just prove their point. Thank you.
Okay. My thought process around this is efficiency. That's clearly what I started. I understand people have their concerns, understand all that. A lot of you brought up communication, outreach. Let me remind everyone, we're not separate of who we are on this board. You're a community board member. You have an opportunity to answer a question earlier about who's responsible for bringing agenda items. We all are, as community board members. If somebody has something that they think is realistically an issue that they need to bring forward to their committee chair, subcommittee chair, myself, you bring it. I had this conversation with the executive committee a couple months ago about agenda items in general, because I was personally frustrated as to why I wasn't seeing stuff for NYCHA, for arts and culture, for everything that everybody has said here tonight. I understand everything everyone has said. I grew up in Jacob Reese myself, as everyone is alluding to their relationships with NYCHA properties. I will allude to my own. That being said, I am a man of compromise and I understand. If you want to vote no tonight, fine. What you're going to see over the next day or so is the bylaw changes. And this subcommittee structure, I think, is at the end all be all is the problematic portion that I've had, is the way it's been set up. So I've decided to take a look at it and hammer it down and change it up to a division of primary committees and secondary committees. So in hearing what everyone has heard tonight, I would definitely look at this, the NYCHA subcommittee as it's currently constituted, and reconstituting it as a potential secondary committee. If you vote no tonight, that's fine. If you vote yes to this, that's fine. Secondary committee, you'll see in the bylaws that will come out with the 1 month notification, one month notification. And the big change that will come, and I'll announce it right now, is that secondary committee meetings will not happen every month. They will not happen every other month. They will be called upon. So as some of you alluded to, maybe this being more of an ad hoc kind of thing, task force kind of thing, I can place it under that. I will go into the specifics of the bylaw changes when you have them in front of you next month. If that's how this lines up, then that's how this will line up. But everyone has had something to say tonight, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the comments, but we're all board members, and you can all bring agenda items as well. We can look at them, discuss them, see if they make sense, if it's appropriate or not, but you can bring those items too. Your community board member, that is also your duty, not just mine, not just the committee chairs. It's not good enough or simple enough to say, oh, I am so-and-so and I am a member of community board 3. You got to put the work in as well. Can't be the same crew of people over and over and over again that are bringing the items. Everyone can do it. Everyone can be a part of this process. You can do it. You want to say something, you want to bring something to my attention, more than happy to have that conversation offline. I'm closing debate on this and we'll move forward. That is it for the executive committee report. And I will move on to economic development, which did not meet, correct? But no, it did meet, but it's going to, it was a tech hub. Who chaired? Did Andrea chair? Oh no.
Hi, yes, thank you, Paul. We just had a quick couple presentations, nothing to vote on. Just a presentation from the CAB of the Tech Hub regarding the fund for the scholarship, and that's some ongoing work that's happening. But it was just a preliminary update as to the contours of the fund. Which loosely speaking will be determined on an annual basis, how, and as per needs. And then we also had a update from a report of a storefront vacancy findings from a consortium of different community-based organizations. Really interesting report. I encourage everyone to check it out on the video if you want to learn more details. But that was it. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Val, you have a question for Andrea?
Just what committee was that, and what tech hub are we talking about?
That was economic development. Go ahead, Andrea.
So the Tech Hub, as part of the council negotiations, was part of it was that that there would be an annual fund of $200,000 per year.
My question is just, what Tech Hub are you talking about? Where is this?
So
at?
the Union Square Tech Hub.
Okay,
I'm sorry,
right.
I wasn't
I totally understand. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. That was all I want.
Okay,
Thank you, Andrea. Parks. Trevor, go ahead.
Thank you, Paul. So we had two resolutions which are on your vote sheet. The first was for the Riverton Street Playground reconstruction, which is going to be newly designed. And the other one was for the amphitheater canopy. I know we're trying to be brief, but if there are any questions, I'll take them now.
What am I doing?
I do not know.
Al, you have your hand up. I presume
Yeah,
you
no,
have a
I
question.
don't know whether it's now or later, but you know, one of my issues with that is that I live near the amphitheater. And during the meeting, I was really kind of surprised at the meeting, but what kind of got me was the lights. And I don't know whether to talk about it now or when we talk about the resolutions, because I just have an issue with, you know, this special lighting at night. I really don't want, and I think I can say this for a lot of other people too, is I don't think people want folks out there all night long. I have to say, like I've said before, I've never called because they generally stop at 9 o'clock sharp. I don't know, but to have some extra lights out there makes me a little uncomfortable. Whereas my understanding is that somewhat that generator or the generator box, that might be something that can supply the lighting. I just don't like the idea of whatever this extra lighting is that people can be out there all night long. I think you would probably get complaints.
All right, just for clarification, and we discussed this in the meeting, there will be an electrical box added to the amphitheater to allow for performances. The electrical box is controlled by Parks and will only be used by Parks for permitted events. So any events after permitted that are not permitted will not have access to that box.
I think, Trevor, that's my point, is that it looks like this, the resolution, do I have the right one? Let me get the right one. Additional lighting for the stage area is added. That's one of the things. Therefore, be it resolved, the CB3 supports the proposed East River Amphitheater canopy design with the following conditions. Additional lighting for the stage area is added. Whereas up there as one of the things for the whereases is an electrical panel box for permitted events. So this to me looks like you're talking about additional lighting. That's my only issue, is that I think most people would be very highly annoyed if people lasted longer than, if they were out there longer than 9 o'clock, because they had some additional lighting so they could be out there past 9 o'clock. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, I'll go to Ryan because we did have a discussion and comments from other committee members. So I'll go to Ryan, I think, who was asking for more lighting for the stage. Ryan?
Yeah.
Hi, yes, I just wanted to make clear that, you know, this would also be lighting that would be controlled by Parks and could not be necessarily, you know, available for any non-permitted use. The problem with only having any kind of performance lighting made available in the generator box is that someone would have to rent a whole lot of lighting to come in to do any performance. And although it's rare, I think you heard that occasionally they do have performances that happen after dark. I think the Parks Department does it on rare exceptions, but once in a while it happens. And then, you know, when you're talking about things that might still be in warm weather, but shorter days, there might be an hour or so before 9 o'clock that lighting would be needed if there was going to be performance there. But if you can only plug into the generator, it will require you to bring a lot of lighting equipment, which means that a lot of small companies and local companies could not afford to do that. So by having some lighting built in, you would give them the option to also have access to that space on the occasional permitted evening event.
And just to help clarify that, the only events that would be able to use these lights would be permanent events by parks, since they would hold the key.
Okay, that sounds better. The only thing was, I have to say, and then that's all I have to say about this, is that the former amphitheater didn't have lighting. And so that's my only other thought about this. But I assume that the people that live over here, if there's a problem later on, we can write to everybody and, get some response.
Right, and one of the things we're trying to create with this new amphitheater is to address some of the problems or some of the issues that a lot of the smaller art performers have. And as you know, from addressing things from sound, because there was extensive research done and a lot of effort put into make sure that sound doesn't travel to the buildings beyond the FDR, as well as lighting and shade, and also adding an electrical box, which I think is key, so that people can plug in without hauling truckloads of equipment to the site.
Okay, that sounds good. Like I said, I think as residents, when this happens, residents can get together and respond if there's a need to have a response.
Any further questions? Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Trevor. Ryan, is your hand up from before?
Sorry, yes, I'll take it down.
It's okay. All right. Thank you. All right. May Human Services.
Oh, hi there. So we had a meeting this past month, and we had a very nice panel discussion on students and families experiencing homelessness and how to support them and advocate for them. But we have nothing for you to vote on.
Thank you, May. Michelle, SLA.
Thanks, Paul. We had 5 applications this month, and all of them signed their stipulations. And I just want to reiterate a little bit about what Paul said about doing the work. SLA is one of those committees that are a lot of work outside of the meetings. Excuse me. So if you're joining the committee, I welcome you. Just letting you know that we do expect you to do work outside the meetings. Excuse me. And I feel like that's something that gets forgotten often. So, and the chairs do a ton of that work as well. So just a reminder to everyone, if you have any questions about the applications, let me know. Thank you.
I don't see any questions, Michelle. Okay. Landmarks didn't meet. Land use. All right. Go ahead, Anisha. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. We have one resolution tonight. We actually spent 2 committee meetings working on this, both May and June, to discuss the non-ULURP modification to the zoning lot for Campos Plaza 2. This would facilitate the transfer of development rights to an adjacent private site owned by Madison Realty Capital. The total amount of the development rights is 108,000 square feet, I believe mainly residential, and will have a total value of 19.5 million. That will be used to fund exclusively improvements at Campos Plaza 2. The residents of Campos Plaza 2, through their tenant association, have been part of a process for nearly a year to negotiate and evaluate the development rights transfer. They will continue to be engaged in a process to determine how the funds will be spent. We did hear a lot of comments. These were sort of in total about 7 hours of meeting, maybe more, from adjacent property owners. And you'll see some of that feedback incorporated in the resolution. I'll take any questions.
Olympia, go ahead.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Anissa. So, I wanted to address the comments that were made earlier today regarding this resolution. I was the only committee member that voted against this NYCHA air rights transfer to the Madison Realty Capital. And this is not because, Campus Plaza shouldn't receive 19.5 million. They should receive, in my opinion, at least 40 or 50. How much is it needed at this point with inflation for all the maintenance that they need? My concern was that we didn't actually receive the information that we needed in order to do the work that we have been doing at land use from the developer. In fact, Madison Realty Capital that we heard at the meetings and Cooper Square committee has been working with tenant leaders because they have a history, or at least of some tenants claiming harassment by renovation and other, inappropriate behavior as a developer. We didn't receive, all the information that we usually receive from any developer, let alone someone that has a history of, claims of harassment or other problems in the community. So we also weren't able to add the usual planning context that we put around large-scale residential developments, LSRD, and their history in our district, especially in the cases like Two Bridges or here at Campus Plaza that has to do with affordable development for the future. And this development will be 30-year, it will be very little development. Now, all this said, I did try to do the work for a few years now, and I wanted to announce that I will be stepping down from the community board because I have been priced out, so I will be moving away. And I have been, very honored to serve this community. And at times it has been a pleasure, but definitely every day I learn, including with this resolution. But this was a very problematic one for me. And I truly believe, I hope we're not setting a bad precedent around air rights and NYCHA, because this pricing was also very low and public amenity. If we sell it, we should sell it so that we get a lot for those who need it. Thank you again for allowing me to serve.
Okay, news hits keep on coming. Olympia, let's have a conversation offline. Thank you. Let me see, I see a few hands up. Okay, in this order: Arnett, David Crane, Val, Trevor, Susan. Go ahead, Arnett.
Thank you, Paul. I missed a few. I missed June's meeting. A lot of June's meetings. I had COVID and I thought I was going to die, but I'm alive. But a couple of things, like I'm listening that the environmental impact statement was not really a complete one. There was a lot of issues around. It seems like this air right negotiation, and one of my concerns is that a lot of because there were so many missing pieces, it seems like whatever decision we've come to may not be as well informed as it could have been, because we're missing an in-depth environmental impact statement. And in listening to the comments of the neighboring buildings that would be affected, it brought up some more issues on how well informed the whole community was, and how much impact and how much say that they have to bring to the table. I understand completely on trying to get money to make improvements, but $19 million can be spent in like a year or two. And then there's going to be a lot more happening. And as that's happening and things that need to be repaired, we're going to have a really bad gentrification issue where people like Olympia, and I'm sorry to see, be priced out of the neighborhood. I want to know how much, like when we think about the impact, the impact of it, we only have to think about the environmental, but the impact to the community. And as we're living and breathing now, inflation and everything else that's going on is pricing us out of our community. I'm a longtime Lower East Side resident, second generation born here. And I love this community, and I don't want to make decisions blindly without having enough information. And it seems like we made a decision based on the information that was provided, but I don't know if that was enough information to make a really informed decision that would affect our community for generations to come. So I'm interested in hearing, has there been more information presented? Have we gotten a more robust environmental impact statement? Are we thinking of the light and air, as the young lady said about her building? Because as we move forward, we're going to need light, because we have this whole Green Deal. A lot of that is solar and other energy. If we start to shorten our light in our community, we will then cut off our opportunity to engage more in green energy, because we have cut off our legs. We're receiving light for our lower income buildings, because the more luxury towers that are going up will receive more light and energy, more light than our neighbors. And so that's something to consider and think about, because when we make these decisions, it's not just for our tenure as community board members, it's for the generation of, it's for another generation. It's going to affect people 20 to 30 years down the line, which will be my children and my grandchildren. So I'm wondering if we receive more information since we've made this, since this resolution has been put together. And I applaud the work that's behind doing that. It is not an easy task. And I really thank everyone that's done it. But I just want to know if we've received more information thus far.
Anisha, answer that question, and then I'm going to address something. Go ahead.
Thanks. We have not received more information. I think what Olympia is actually, and Olympia, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that, and the comment was that there are some folks that feel like the environmental impact statement did not cover enough area, but there was an environmental impact statement that was done and that was reviewed by the committee, that was provided to us. And so we evaluated that, in addition to hearing comments from many people, in addition to all of the other supplemental documentation that was provided to CPC by the developer and NYCHA and others, and discussed that over 7 to 8 hours, and came up with the majority of the committee voted in support. So I understand that there are additional outstanding issues. Those are not particularly about this project in particular, but maybe policy changes or other changes we would like to see about how the land use process happens in this city. Those could be separate things, but I would encourage any person who feels strongly about any of these items to come to the committee meetings. That is where we talk and discuss and evaluate all of these things.
You stole my line, Anisha. There's a lot of hands up right now. A lot of this has already been discussed in May and in June. There needs to be direct questions about the resolution. Please do so right now. It is 9:03, and I'm afraid we're going to get kicked off again. So I'm going to make this quick. David, Valentina, Trevor, Josh, Damaris. Please.
Got me.
Oh, and Susan, sorry.
I did attend the committee meeting to learn about this. I do support the project because it's going to create badly needed housing. We are in a housing crisis, and we need to start addressing that. Much of the housing that's going to be created is going to be affordable. It's going to be using pretty typical formulas based on the area median income to determine who the tenants can be. It is structured to finance some badly needed repairs in the NYCHA complex. And it does that, all of that, without being out of scale, since it won't be taller than other large buildings very nearby, such as Haven Plaza. And I hope you'll join me in supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Val, direct questions about the resolution.
No, I just have a comment. The resolution, one of the whereas is because I couldn't figure out who the people were that was speaking before. One of the third one from the therefore be it resolved. NYCHA and the residents of Compost Plaza 2 have been in discussions about the transfer of developmental rights since March, and a majority of the Tenants Association voted in support of the transfer. And so I just think that's something to take into consideration, that the NYCHA people, the people who live Compost Plaza, it seems that that was the majority. The Tenants Association voted in support. So like I said, I'm not sure who those people were that, you know, came on earlier, but no one actually said, I live in Compost Plaza. So that was it.
Okay, thank you. Trevor.
Well, I'll be quick, and I was going to reiterate a couple things and basically what Val said and what Anisha talked about. It's more like 8 hours of meetings for this one particular topic. And it's just kind of odd that we were talking about the NYCHA subcommittee, and this took up an enormous amount of time. And it was also very nice, and where I took my guidance from, to listen to several NYCHA tenant leaders, which we did not hear at the beginning of this meeting, but we did at the committee. If you want to go back and if you want to go back and watch those meetings, you can, because there is some useful information and some testimony from some of the NYCHA residents about how they feel and about the value of the air rights and about the bad needed repairs. And one constant thing we heard was, we cannot wait. So that's why I took my guidance and voted in support.
Thanks, Trevor. Joshua Damaris, Susan. Josh.
Thank you. So just to contextualize this, I've been at the last two land use meetings. I live 7 buildings over from the proposed site. It's just over there. So this would directly affect my co-op. I spoke in favor of the resolution at committee. I'm still very much obviously in favor of the resolution. I just want to address a couple things that seem to be lacking context in this conversation. We're kind of talking about it in a bubble because, as many have mentioned, it's been discussed for so many hours already. So if the land right sale were to not go through, Madison Realty Capital would still build a building. They would still build a 17-story building of the same height on the same lot. All the land use action was to for the sale of the air rights. And so I feel like that's kind of been, not always discussed, especially within my co-op, that is the reality of the situation. The building will be built there. But on a broader scale, like others have mentioned, we are in a housing crisis, and, we can only, it's only so meaningful to say, to talk about it. The more meaningful action is to do something about it. We talk about being priced out. We talk about gentrification. The way to avoid gentrification is to build more. If you increase the supply of housing, that's what the economics says. So I am wholeheartedly in support of this. We, like others have said, we talked at length at the committee about this, and I hope the full board will see it the same.
It's getting pretty lengthy right now. So Damaris and Susan are the last two. Go ahead.
Thank you, Joshua, for just framing that, the issue is a little bit more complex than that, and that some of it was addressed. I also want to say that a lot of the discussion at this committee meeting was related to this being a large-scale redevelopment site and creating a contiguous lot that separated the two. They are going to build no matter what. This is not to diminish anybody else's concerns, but somebody else also did mention that Compost Plaza residents were not on here and were not able to say their opinion about this issue. What I can say for you, I don't want to pretend that I live in Compost. What I can tell you is that we worked with Compost on this entire issue for a really long time. And so while this committee spent 8 hours, those residents have spent hundreds of hours working on this issue. And this is where they landed. Their development is in dire need. And if you know me, I'm very skeptical about these kind of projects because, I do certainly believe that, we can't rob Peter to pay Paul. But in this situation, the impact of doing nothing or letting them build this 17-story tower and not, taking advantage of the potential to raise revenue that is necessary for, repairs that would make and improve the quality of life for residents, that would be a mistake on this board's part. And so that I'm certain of, and I hope that what will happen is that Madison Realty and others can work with the adjacent tenants to figure out other ways to accommodate and to lessen the impact on their buildings. But I don't think voting this down is that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Susan, last comment.
Okay, and to put in another context, this has already been voted on. The DCP hearing was this morning. The executive committee on behalf of the full board voted on this as per the bylaws, and this is just ratifying the executive committee. So this morning, the hearing was held this morning. It was approved, and approval is going to Department of Buildings. That is why when the tenants spoke during public session, they said they knew it was symbolic comments. This has happened.
Thank you. Nisha, I'm closed debate, so thanks. There's no more. Thank you. All right. David, I understand there's a potential change coming for one of your transportation resolutions. Go ahead.
Yes, so if Larissa could get it up on the screen, we'll tell you that we passed a resolution at committee. We passed a motion at committee that said we supported this bus layover that was going to be created. They've already been using it, but on First Street, which is a tiny little strip of street that goes between Houston, it cuts off Houston and First Avenue. If we can get this up on the screen, this will be more efficient. But thank you, look at that photograph, the photo please first. This is the evidence. I do not believe that we should support this anymore. This is a photograph that was taken by Old Eagle Eyes, Susan Stetzer, a couple of mornings ago, Friday morning, I believe. This bus was turning off of First Avenue onto 4th Street and it got stuck. And it got stuck blocking any police, fire, or ambulance access. This is a first responder block. And then we were informed by, well, this is in the resolution I'll read in a moment, or my amendment, we were informed by New York City Transit that this is the turnaround that would be used to get to the layover zone down on First Street. That just can't be allowed. It's just too dangerous. They're going to have to go back and figure out an alternative for the route. Now, I apologize. At committee, we did not inquire about the route. It's not like we see these things very often, and we should have. So, we'll make a note of this for the next time. But also, New York City Transit didn't offer that information up front either. But if you'll scroll down to the amendment, so you can see it here in markout form. I'm moving that we keep going. It's basically knocking out 2 whereases and replacing them by this 3rd whereas. And then the therefore be resolved will be a flat denial of it. So are any questions about this? The first 2 whereases, they're irrelevant because we're not sending up an approval. So we didn't know those little details. And then this whereas is what I just described. So,
David,
yeah.
This seems, I don't know if I'm reading this correct. It's a huge whereas, and the therefore is right at the end. Therefore, this cannot be the route to be proposed by the.
Okay, well, this can't. There's further down. There's also a therefore be it resolved. We're basically saying the same thing. The resolve that we does not approve of the installation. Right. I just feel it's a dangerous situation that's going to be created, and New York City Transit needs to figure out what they're going to use for the route. Perhaps it'd be on 4th Street. They need to take some street side parking, perhaps, to make it so that these big articulated buses can make that turn. Are there any questions on this?
There's 3 hands up. I'm going to go with Michelle, Jake, Lee. Michelle, go ahead.
Oh, excuse me, thanks. The first is that NYTC road operations is misspelled. It should be NYCT road operations in the middle of the paragraph. Do you see it? Part of
The
the
next one.
part of
Just
the
the next
route
one.
that MYCT.
Yes.
Excuse me. My second question is, in that picture, there were cars that were angle parked. Are those legally parked there, or is there, if they are legally parked,
That is the parking situation, is angled parking.
couldn't that be easily changed to be
Could
non-angled
be if it
parking,
was
and then
part
there
of
would
the
be space for
proposal.
the bus to move?
Yes, it could be. And that's where they should come back to us with a proposal for correcting the street geometry, if that was what they would like to do. It was just simply not enough room as it is. Their proposal was pretty incomplete the first time and the second time they brought it to us.
Okay, so I guess it's just not clear to me from the whereas clause that would be a suggestion that we would make to them, is to reconfigure or reconsider the parking regulations on East 4th Street, if that's to be part of the.
I wasn't suggesting changes. I did say at the end there, clearly articulated buses cannot reliably make this turn onto that block with the current street geometry.
Okay, I was asking, is
It's not
that
rocket science for them to figure out. There
Okay.
are other things they could do as well.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure they'll come back toot sweet with
Okay,
addressing this. Okay.
Okay, I see 3 hands and then we'll wrap this up. Jake, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. David, could you just scroll up to the picture? That's my only question.
Larissa, can you scroll up? Thank you. That was your only question? Okay.
Yeah, that was it. Thank you.
Lee, go ahead.
Hi, David. First, Susan, thanks for bringing this to our attention. So, David, this is a question for you. How are we as a committee supposed to know that this would have been an issue, or that this wasn't looked at or reviewed by Transit before they brought it back to us the second time? I'm feeling like they either pulled the wool over our eyes, or there's just they didn't follow through on the process that it seems should have been followed through on.
Yeah, you're asking me to speculate. Agencies don't necessarily do complete enough analysis of many things. All right, so I don't think they were pulling the wool over our eyes. I don't think that they put out a huge effort to prepare this either. Is that good?
Despite the fact that they had at least 2 months, you know,
we didn't ask a single question about it, Lee. So, it didn't occur to us.
I would not have known to ask about this type of thing. All right, thank you, David.
I should have, but we all focused on the layout of the at the loading zone. Yeah, sorry about that. I really am.
All right, final 2 comments, Richard, and then Susan. Go ahead, Richard.
I live on that corner on 4th and 1st. The change, to answer Michelle's question, the change for angle parking was initiated by the city, about 3 or 4 years ago, if I recall correctly. So they just implemented it. As the buses have progressed, as the articulated buses have come through that intersection, and they have been doing that for at least 6 months, maybe a year now, where they have taken the liberty of making that turn. They have been stuck there before.
Ooh.
They have jammed up behind sanitation vehicles, emergency vehicles, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a difficult thing for them to try and get through there. I'm not in favor, I'm in favor of David's change to getting them to go back and rethink this.
All right, thank you, Richard. Susan.
Yeah, so after I took the picture, I sent it to MTA, New York City Transit, and their response was that the bus driver was inexperienced and that he had called a supervisor who came and removed it, which was totally not true. I'm the only one that called anyone, and I called the police to come stop the traffic on First Avenue so they could back up. So my point is, City Transit is still not admitting that this is a problem. They have an algorithm that says that turn can be made, and they just insist, in spite of what Richard has just pointed out, that this can be done and that they can use that route. It clearly should not be used if it's, it presents a problem often enough. It is the only through street that particularly the fire engines use.
So if there's no more comments, I think that we can probably ask if there are any objections to adopting this resolution. And if there are not, it'll be amended as written.
Can you put that back up, please? Thank you.
Any hands, Paul?
I don't, just going off what David just said, are there any objections to the changes made? This is not what it looks like on the vote sheet. It now looks like that crossed out section. If there's no objections, we'll move forward with that amendment and new resolve clause. I don't see any hands, David. So this change will be adopted and this will be the new resolution in the vote sheet. This is what you'll be voting on. You'll be voting on, therefore be resolved, CB3 does not approve of the installation of the MTA bus layover on the south curb of East First Street between East Houston and First Avenue. So if you vote yes, it is to not approve the installation. Okay. Any other comments, Mr. Crane?
Oh, did I change the title? I bet I did not. You know how the title says? Okay, let's change the title also. Amend that to say does not support approving. Does not support the.
Any objections to does not support so it could match up?
Yeah, sorry about that. Oh my goodness.
I don't think there's any objections.
Maybe you don't need approving, just does not support.
Right. Get rid of approving as well. Okay, let's move on. Great, thanks.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, David. And thank you, Susan, as David called you, old eagle eyes with the camera. All right.
Can I add Dudley Do Right to that? Because she is the one who called the authorities to rescue the bus driver.
Okay. All right. So that's gonna wrap up our committee reports. Any old business? Any new business? All right, Larissa, let's close this out. Pay attention to the votes. Let's go.
For sure. And pardon me, I'm just working on one screen, so I'm a little bit slow tonight. Thanks for your patience.
I got your back on this one, don't worry.
Awesome sauce. Okay, so this will be final vote. Here's to the top. David Adams.
Yes, but I'm standing on the executive committee.
Thank you. Yaron Altman. He's absent. Sarah Rose Baccio, still absent. Lee Berman.
Hi, it's yes, except no on executive committee.
Thank you. Ana Calderon.
Yes.
Carlin Chan.
Yes.
David Crane.
Yes.
Eric Diaz. Tariq Darrell.
No to exec, yes to everything else.
Thank you. Alistair Konomakis.
Yes.
Jamie Felber. Jamie still here? Larry Fenn. Is Larry still here? Yeah, thank you, Larry. Shirley Fennessy. Absent. Catherine Freed.
Yeah, no to the exec. I think NYCHA should make the decision if it needs a subcommittee.
since they're affected, and yes to everything else.
Brian Gilliam,
No to exec and yes to everything else.
Deborah Glass, absent. Jake Gold,
Yes, all the way down.
Andrea Gordillo,
Yes, on all.
Kenny L. Hernandez,
Yes.
Herman Hewitt,
Yes on everything.
Trevor Holland, Trevor,
He's on.
I see him.
There he is.
Sorry, my
No worries.
battery power died. Yes, sorry.
Yep, all the troubles with Zoom. Valentina Jones,
Abstain, Parks, ESCR construction update, yes, everything else.
can you repeat that abstention, please, Valentina?
Parks, ESCR construction update. I live over there, so, I want to be able to advocate for myself.
Okay.
Paul, can I interject here?
Go ahead.
Val, what are you voting or abstaining on? Which item for parks?
ESCR construction update, I think that's what it said.
There's no
We don't-
resolution.
Are you talking about the amphitheater? Because there's no resolution for ESCR.
Oh, okay. Let me go back and look again. I thought that's what it said. I think it says number 5.
That's the amphitheater. That's Parks 5.
Yeah, okay, Parks
Okay.
5.
Parks 5, abstain, Larissa.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, my goodness.
thank you. Olympia Kazi,
No to exec, yes to the rest.
Jeanette Kim is absent. Michelle Coopersmith,
Yes.
okay, Mei Lee,
Yes.
Wendy Lee,
Yes.
Alicia Lewis Coleman,
Yes.
Amanda Liu,
Yes.
David Louie,
Yes.
Laura Lugo,
No to executive, yes to everything else.
Paul Rango,
Yes.
Damaris Reyes,
No to exec, yes to everything else.
Richard Ropiak,
Yes.
Thomas Rosa,
Yes.
Robin Chattel, so absent. Heidi Schmidt,
Yes.
Arnett Scott,
No to exec, yes to everything else.
Larissa Shaneberg, yes, all the way down. Anisha Stephen,
Yes.
Sandra Strother,
Paul, did you get Sandra's text? Is it, she asked, we're not allowed to vote proxy, right?
No.
That's what I told you, okay.
have to be
No.
present.
Nope. So she's absent.
Okay, thank you. Daniel Tanow,
Present not voting on Parks 4 and 5. I work for Parks, and yes on everything else.
thank you. Josephine Velez,
Hello? Can you
yes,
hear me?
Josephine,
Hi.
go ahead.
Yes for everything, except no for executive.
Thank you. Troy Velez,
No to executive, yes to everything else.
Rodney Washington,
Yes.
Joshua Waterman,
Yes.
Kathleen Webster,
Yes, for everything, but abstain on executive.
thank you. Jackie Wong. Absent. And Julia Yang.
Yes.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Okay, that
Bruce.
concludes roll call. You need to
Lucy,
count
I'm
on
gonna
the-
need you
on the
to
exec?
count up. I need you to count up the exec before we.
Okay, so I'm going to
before we
count the
adjourn.
no's on the exec.
No's and abstains, and then the
Okay,
yeses.
so okay, 10 no's, 2 abstains.
Okay,
Yes.
yeses.
Okay, counting up the yeses.
I didn't hear that. I'm sorry.
Sure, 10 no's, 2 abstains.
Thank you.
Now the just count up the yeses when you get a chance.
Looks like 26 yes.
Motion passes. Okay. Ms. Jones, did you have a question?
I just have one comment. I think that in terms of NYCHA, and in terms, I'm assuming that we haven't seen what you were talking about in terms of secondary, but there's 2 comments that I have. I think one is that that the NYCHA issue should be first, because one of the complaints that I get from people when I've invited them to a meeting is that if something else went first, it went so long that Val, I left. I'm like, oh, okay. So I think that that's one thing. The other thing is, I think in terms of outreach, if it goes first and you do outreach to the various NYCHA leaders, I think they might show up if they know it's going first, and that your comments, you're gonna have 2 minutes to make comments. So I just think that those are 2 things that I think would help, is that NYCHA goes first, and that you do outreach to the various NYCHA leaders and let them know that something concerning NYCHA is on the agenda and that it's going first.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Everything else went through. I'll see everybody in July, or at the new member festivities on July 10th. If the executive order extends itself out, we will let everyone know if we are back on Zoom or not, but we will be at Cooper Union. Remember, vaccinations and boosts and masks and whatnot. Have a good night, everyone. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Night.